Hi, everybody. Welcome to Global Tech Tales, the show where we talk with editors from around the world about the latest technology and leadership topics and hear from stories from IT leaders about what they are looking for. I'm Keith Shaw, co-hosting along with Matt Egan. He is the Global Content and Editorial Director at Foundry, who is also representing the UK and North America. And this month we are joined by Carl Friedman. He is the Executive Editor for EMEA. Do you pronounce that EMEA or, just EMEA?
Yeah, either one is good.
And he's also representing Foundry. Now, we've got something weird is that you are from the U.S., Carl, but you're in the U.K. Matt is in the U.K., but he also represents North America, and I'm somewhere in the middle of everything. So welcome, everybody.
Hands across the ocean, Keith. We're all part of one world, right?
There you go. There you go. So on this episode, we're going to be talking about AI-savvy IT leadership strategies. The reason that we wanted to discuss this on this episode is that the AI revolution is creating new opportunities for IT executives to basically up their game in terms of driving innovation, growth, and productivity. But will this require new IT leadership skills? And, what are they going to need to do as new technologies, not just generative AI, but as we get into the world of AI agents, digital employees, all of that stuff. There's going to be pitfalls and obstacles along the way. So we're going to kind of jump into that. So for the first part of the show, we always start off with some statistics. Some of these stats may have nothing to do with the show that we're going to be discussing, but I find them interesting. So I've got 4 little different statistics, and I want you to just kind of like take this all in and see how this applies to our discussion later on. But first off, there was a survey by General Assembly that found only 42% of executives said that they feel very or extremely confident in using AI tools without compromising company data. And in addition, 27% reported low confidence in their ability to use AI tools responsibly. And the same survey showed that 39% of executives lack the knowledge to make informed decisions when hiring AI vendors. So that's out there. The second one was that according to a Pluralsight AI skills report, 95% of IT leaders believe that AI projects will fail without staff who can effectively use AI tools, and only 40% of organizations are offering formal AI training for employees. And that was a CIO.com article, by the way. Third, there was a McKinsey report that showed another disconnect between leadership and employees. 63% of business leaders say that they believe their organization will be AI ready in the next 2 years, where only 22% of employees are sharing this optimism. And finally, there was an edX survey that found that 92% of 500 chief executives plan to improve their AI skills within the next 12 to 24 months, showing a recognition of the need for enhanced AI literacy at the executive level. So that, again, we're going to talk for CIOs and other IT leaders, that's the executive letter, but we're also going to discuss employees, and those are the people that basically, they manage. So remember, we're going to be looking for stories here of when you talk to IT leaders. The stats are showing that across all levels, there is some concern about this level of skills and knowledge when it comes to AI. And there also seems to be an undercurrent of where to dedicate the training and upskilling in this space. So when you're talking to IT leaders, Matt and Carl, what are they saying and about this, about the level of training that people think that they need?
What I'm hearing overall is the most important thing a tech leader can do is create an environment that produces more good leaders. What that environment is kind of varies from company to company, but empowering employees is, by whatever means, is kind of the foundation that needs to be laid. A big challenge for CIOs, though, is identifying candidates with technical skills and the right mindset. So that's people who can, apply industry-specific Gen AI to solve business problems, not just adopt a tool or some tech-first approach. So that needs a deep understanding of the business context and how to integrate Gen AI into practical solutions. So AI isn't a fix unto itself, but if a business is good at delivering transformation, it'll probably be good at wielding AI and dedicating time and resources to ensure staff are confident using, AI in their roles.
Yeah, and Matt, when you hear from IT leaders, is enough attention being paid to skilling, upskilling, training, knowledge to understand the AI, or are they just kind of going and hoping that they'll do this on their own?
Yeah, first of all, brilliant stats, Keith, because I think that really sets the scene as to to the broadness of the challenge here. And I loved that feedback, Carl, because I think one of the things you said there was around the idea of developing people and skills rather than kind of going straight to the sort of specific technical capabilities. And I would certainly endorse that. And if I could throw in stats myself, we saw in our own State of the CIO survey recently, like that the general trend is that CIOs see their current main responsibilities around things like security, operations, infrastructure, but they see themselves spending more and more time over the next years around strategic initiatives, of which AI is clearly the high principle, right? So what does that mean in terms of how you manage yourself when you manage your teams? I was fortunate enough to see a really interesting panel conversation recently featuring the CIO of one of the world's largest white goods manufacturers, an organization with more than 40,000 employees. And he was saying, just as an example, that within that organization, they're identifying people in all roles, not just IT, at all levels of the organization. And they're giving them regular time and training in the potential of AI and AI platforms and the ethics and the considerations, right? Specifically agentic AI, but all outputs of AI. And their thinking is that we know we can't know the potential or limitations of a new technology, but we can empower people throughout the organization to think proactively about solutions that utilize AI, but also educate and empower their peers and spread this kind of thinking across the organization. And, we've seen similar approaches across a wide variety of organizations over the past several years, technical, conceptual training as an inspiration, proof of concept projects, which was definitely 2024, right? That are as much about disseminating skills and knowledge and finding what works as they are about succeeding on their own terms. So if I combine kind of the statistical market view that you presented us with, Keith, and Carl's really insight, I think, look, it's hard to train for a specific future that may look different to your current expectations, but I am sensing that there's this move to kind of empower people to tackle that future with confidence.
Is AI skills training something that the IT group can take ownership of and say, because normally training of employees usually is handled by either a training department or maybe HR does some training, but it feels like that this is so important for the entire company that the IT group should be the ones that are taking charge. And I'm wondering if you're hearing that as well.
I mean, in my experience, it really varies wildly, right? And I'd love to hear from Carl on this because he is speaking to CIOs day in, day out. But I think, what I've seen is it kind of speaks back to that overall core point, which is the IT strategy supporting the business strategy, or is the IT strategy the business strategy? And therefore, is the CIO a support staff or a leader of change, right? I've seen various approaches. I think within IT and strategy, most organizations have come to the point of having like a named individual or team with overall responsibility for AI, maybe projects and solutions, maybe strategy. Most organizations have got lots of technical training within their IT departments. But to your point, Keith, there's the extra thing of like everybody's got to be involved in this solution. And then I think it goes a little bit further, right? Because within the IT department, there's, I guess, the wider issue of what we might call AI inside. What drudge work, what toil in all roles can be replaced by agentic or generative AI? And what does that mean in terms of your human workforce? That's more of a technical thing, right? A lot of organizations are planning for a world in which, and I know we'll probably touch on this later, but in which, AI is replacing humans, but humans are then directing the AI. So I think, again, it's one of my classic answers, Keith. I think I've seen both approaches, and I'm not sure which is best. There's definitely this move where IT is in charge of technical skills for IT people, but I think at a broader level, the more mature organizations are understanding that everybody needs to be kind of immersed.
Carl, are you seeing that too when you talk with CIOs, that they understand that they should be a part of the training and the upskilling, or are they deferring to other business people?
Oh yeah, they're integral to the whole system, really. I mean, this might be a bit of a tangent, but a lot of companies get kind of hoodwinked into taking on something they don't know how to use or what it's for. So there needs to be those checks and balances. Robust training and development programs are needed, which is something that LinkedIn Chief Product Officer, his name is Tomer Cohen, says. But then we have Brett Barton. He's Global AI Practice Leader at Unisys. He says it's the non-tech companies that have the hardest time, finding talent with Gen AI skills. I mean, their pay scales don't often afford top tech talent, and they don't often have technical leadership that can adequately, vet the people they're interviewing. So they can educate internally, but the technology evolves so fast that, by the time someone finishes, a course or program, the tech is different. So, it's all hands on deck, really.
Yeah, and on a similar note, I think I wanted to ask you this too. On a similar note, where the IT leaders probably don't have as much knowledge as they should. I mean, some of those stats were showing that a lot of IT leaders felt that they weren't properly trained themselves. So does it become a case of where it's like the cobbler's children, where, you ask everybody who wants to be trained in AI and the entire company raises their hand. And then you have to make the decision, well, should we train the IT staff first and then use that to train everybody else? Or does that become seen as like, well, you're just being selfish. We should train the business first, and then whatever's left over, I'm sure that there's battles going on about who can get the training first and second and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think, there's a few things that I'd want to unpick there. It's interesting that Carl mentioned, things failing after the purchase of a product or service, right? And our own customer service data shows that customer engagement data, shows that the time when IT is least involved is after implementation, and typically that's the time when things go wrong. So causation isn't correlation, but there is definitely a piece. There is a piece of something there. And I think I was speaking to an IDC analyst recently who talked about, I said, if you could give one piece of advice on this subject, what would it be? And she said, don't think of yourself as a buyer, as someone who's, purchasing solutions. Think of yourself as a strategist, and then like think about the buying piece. Because I think as it relates to this skills question, there's no doubt that as a leader, I don't care whether you're in IT or not, you should be spending time learning about the potential of this technology. But if you are the IT leader, you probably want to make sure that you are the expert, or you certainly employ the expert within your organization, so that you're able to make and lead those decisions.
Yeah, and Carl, what are you hearing on that? Are the IT leaders that you talk to understanding about who needs to be trained first, or does that not even come up? It's more about the budget and training priorities.
There's some variation, but like I spoke with Brad Stone. He's SVP at Booz Allen Hamilton, and he was CIO, and he was CIO, up until about last year. He speaks about being something called Client Zero, which helps the company inspire and kind of retain talent while continuously learning and embracing technology to build, trusted relationships. The company's also building its own Gen AI training model. And, they have 14,000 employees, already starting to upskill, through that. The goal is to have, all 35,000, the whole workforce be AI ready. So it is a collective effort. And they see reskilling existing employees as the best way to attain ROI.
Yeah, and so the next question I wanted to ask was how much time is needed by an IT leader to think about how the jobs are going to change within the organization with the rise of either generative AI or agentic AI. For example, we had Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff on our other show, Today in Tech. And he discussed on our show and other podcasts about he's focusing less time on hiring customer service professionals because of their Agentforce AI agents. But then he also is saying that he wants to reskill a lot of those customer service people to become account managers because he's recognized that he needs, as Agentforce grows, he's going to need more account managers. And so, is there a recognition among IT leaders that a lot of the jobs and responsibilities within the organization are going to change? And how much of a role does the IT leader have in those job changes?
Yeah, there's certainly a changing landscape of roles. AI isn't just a separate thing anymore. It's limited to data scientists. Like if you're hiring a software engineer, that person has to have some knowledge of AI. And if you're hiring an AI engineer, that person needs to have knowledge of software development. So there's a lot of reciprocating. Like Adobe, for instance, recently created a specialist group, like a governance process called AI at Adobe to help shape its strategy. That includes people from legal, engineering, and other business functions, and they set the direction for emerging tech. So the key part is finding the right tool for the right individual. And their CIO, Cindy Stoddard, says, they don't want to end up with Gen AI sprawl with a complex tangle of services. So this AI at Adobe works, with the IT team to control the organization's AI tools and, get the best value out of the technology.
Yeah, so I think that's brilliant because again, Carl is speaking to practitioners who are doing this work, right? And it's excellent sort of detail and knowledge. I think if you take a step back, we've talked often, Keith, about how, like leading on strategy, leading on IT strategy, which should be business strategy, is the sign of a successful organization. And any successful leader has what I would call an organizational strategy, right? So you're not thinking necessarily about this individual's great, they're an A player, they're a B player, whatever. You're saying, right, what does our organization need to look like in future? Like what skills, what responsibilities, what processes need to be handled, what at each kind of node of the business, like where do we need a human being to be like in charge and making decisions? And I think I'm seeing that happen a lot more and more, and it's kind of becoming more both kind of more anonymized and to a certain extent outside of traditional job roles, because it has to be, right? Because we're going to change the business. There's going to be some level at which agents are fitting in here alongside human beings. The drudge work, the toil, we're hoping that's going to go away, but that means we need decision makers, human strategists and decision makers. And the knock-on effect to that is the individual whose job title is this or that may not be doing that work in future, right? So a lot of what these leaders are having to do is identify smart folks, people who can learn, people who can be trained, people who are completer finishers, people who are creative, and then after you have your strategy in place, that's when you start to put people into those roles and figure out where you're lacking. There are certain things where you need very specific technical skills today, right? And you've got to go get them. There are other areas where it's like, you know what? Let's grow together and figure this out kind of thing. I bet this person can learn to do that well. So I do think like that kind of the point Mark Benioff makes, and here's a shock. He's a smart guy, right? But I feel like obviously he has his own organizational strategy in mind, and he's thinking about what the future looks like. I think all organizations are going through something similar, and as employees, flexibility and the ability to grow and learn is going to be a really important factor as businesses develop and transform and the years go by.
Yeah. There's a couple of other side issues that I want to talk about. I found this really cool article on CIO.com talking about the 8 new rules of IT leadership and, basically the new way of thinking. And one of them was related to training and skilling. It wasn't just about training on a specific technology or platform or an app, for example. There was this great quote. It was like, for example, it's not just training someone how to use insert tech here, like, one app, but to get them to understand why it's important to the job and how it will help people become more efficient. And it feels like that's what an IT leader needs to do when it comes to training their people, is not just kind of going through, okay, first you do X, then you click this button, then you do this and everything's great. It's almost like there has to be a higher level. This is why we're doing this. With the AI, this is, we're not replacing your job, but your job is now going to be this because this will make everybody more efficient. And I'm not sure if we're going to see that initially, but that's what everyone should strive for. Correct?
Yeah, I think stable IT infrastructure is more essential than ever, and yet CIOs can't succeed, by making a steady state the end all be all. So, they must be change agents who are okay with constant change and advocates for it, while ensuring infrastructure can scale to support that change. What makes Gen AI different from other major tech revolutions is that the AI itself can be used to help meet the challenges it creates. You can talk to it as if it were a person, so that accelerates adoption and faster training than any other technology. So that's part of becoming technically, fluent. But I don't think IT leaders are willing to say that Gen AI will achieve, emotional intelligence yet. Even if AI has been, discussed and poured over for decades, we're still hearing a lot of, it's still early. We're still in the early days of what AI means to the enterprise. And cutting out humans in the loop is a pretty unpopular, position to take still. IT leaders certainly want progress in this area, but not total relinquishment. It's kind of like a dichotomy paradox. We'll get incrementally closer, but never all the way there. That's kind of the sense I'm getting.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things I've seen out there have talked about they don't, there are people that do not want to have an AI as a manager or as a supervisor. It just feels like, and to bring it all the way to the top, I don't think any CIOs want to, report to either an AI CIO or an AI CEO. But there are people that are out there that are trying that experiment. We've seen that, even on, I saw an Instagram clip the other day where someone was doing an AI interview with an avatar, and they, the first level of a job interview was now being asked by AI avatars, and these things look horrible, and it's like talking to a robot, and I just don't think that experiments like that. Maybe the experiments are done so that we can see how bad it is and maybe try to improve it, but I don't think anybody wants that emotional empathy that AI does not have, right?
I think, look, there's a lot to unpick here, and I really appreciate Carl talking about the infrastructure piece, right? Because again, this comes back to this thing of you can't do any of this without having the base to build from, and right now that requires like real kind of bricks and mortar, and that requires human management. I think, like we were saying before, I can see a world in which, if we think about human to human management, it's not so much this is how you do the thing, but here's a problem to be solved. Here's the potential capability of some technology that can help you solve it. Here's guardrails. Here's a strategy. Go figure it out, kind of thing. And in that instance, that's the human managing AI to do what in the past would have been done by a more junior human, right? I can see that happening a lot. It's definitely the case that IT strategy and business strategy are becoming one and the same thing. So again, to your point earlier, Keith, like IT leaders need to inform and inspire their teams to drive change, not just support like the business operation, right? So it does have to be about contextualizing the work. Why are we doing this thing? Why are we, regardless of human, AI, whomever's making this thing happen, why are we doing it? Because it's got to support the overall business success. Often actually orientates around customer success. But I don't think, maybe I'm horribly naive, and when one day I'm working for our robot masters, I welcome that. But I think it's much more about humans being empowered, maybe a smaller number of humans, let's be clear, but humans being empowered to use agent AI tools to solve problems within guardrails and the strategy, than it is about humans being told what to do by an AI. But again, like maybe I'm just horribly naive to it.
Isn't that what makes generative AI and a lot of these technologies so interesting? Is not just because, to Carl's point with the infrastructure, where you really need the AI and the agents itself to be highly accurate and specific and not hallucinate. So you've got that side. It's almost like the left brain, right brain side of things. But generative AI can do the right brain stuff, at least some of it. it's getting better and better at the creative side of things. So that's, to me, that's what makes it so interesting, is because there's so many different avenues where generative AI can help, and that's why it's going across the business. But I think just to focus on one specific part of it might be dangerous to companies when they should really be exploring everything.
Well, and also you don't know the nature of it is, to your point, Keith. I mean, like the terms like creativity are loaded, right? Is it creativity, or is it an infinite number of monkeys processing at an infinitely fast rate, right? It sort of doesn't matter if the outcome's the same. But, and this is where this distinction between AI inside and AI outside is super important, right? AI inside, we want to do something internally faster than we've done it before. Like within, and each node of the process, we're able to kind of isolate the AI and get it to do it. That will make things faster. You will be able to develop some ROI. That's cool, right? That's an efficiency. But the really exciting piece is the really scary bit, because it's like if you allow an AI as an agent to have agency, like to in effect make decisions, like in the solving of a problem or the passing of a process, then you don't know. Carl said this brilliantly, right? Agentic AI is set up so that it can solve the problem it causes from an infrastructure perspective. But you are at that point outsourcing some critical decision making to a machine, and you don't know what the incremental outcome of that is, right? It becomes exponential. That's kind of the challenge. But that's also the bit where we have to manage humans, or you speak to leaders, they'll say that they have to manage humans to be empowered to manage the agents, right? That's the challenge here. And you have to manage humans, lead humans to be comfortable with uncertainty.
All right, I want to ask Carl a question about when you talk to the CIOs out there, are they still generally optimistic about generative AI technologies, or do they automatically start thinking about the obstacles and the hurdles and that kind of thing? And I guess it depends on who you talk to. So I'm going to give you that out if you want it. But in general, are they excited about it, or are they, like, oh God, now all this other work I've got to do?
Yeah, I think you can't have one without the other. Really, there's if you're if you're serious about it, you have to be cognizant of the pitfalls and the fact that if we're having this discussion 6 months, a year from now, how different things are going to look, how antiquated some things that we're talking about now are going to be then. So it's a constant restless pursuit of to be vigilant. I mean, from what I'm hearing, really, work is becoming increasingly organized around smaller collaborative networks. So leaders must be able to operate in a networked context, not just a hierarchical one. So instead of silos, there needs to be an increase in employee autonomy and development of dynamic networks of cooperation. And, integrated into that is AI and all the tools and facilities that are coming around. So I don't know if that's a well-rounded answer to the question, but yeah, it's a constant work in progress, I think.
It's exactly that. It's uncertainty almost as a certainty, right? Like the one thing we know is that we don't know. And I love what you just said there, Carl, about these collaborative groups, because I was speaking to an IT leader recently who was talking about pods, described pods. He said within the business now, not just within IT, it's about pods of people solving problems using AI tools, exactly as you just described, Carl.
I'm not sure I like that term of pods. That makes me
feels a bit sci-fi, right?
Well, it's like I've never been a fan of the word huddle room either, but that again, that's more about my wordsmithing than anything else. I wanted to talk about something fun that I did. I went on to ChatGPT and I said, the prompt was something like, give me the top skills that an IT leader needs in 2025. And that's all I said. And what was interesting is that, it gave me a list of 10 different skills. AI and digital fluency was number one on the list. And I didn't ask it to rank it either. Just for some reason, it was like AI and digital fluency. The second one was cross-functional collaboration. I think we've talked about that a little bit. Data-driven decision-making. is out there. Change management and agility, strategic vision, cybersecurity and risk management, talent development and retention, an innovation mindset, ethical and responsible leadership, and executive communication and influence. So the reason I want to bring this up is it's not just AI skills that we're talking about for the IT leader in 2025. There's a lot of other things that they have to do. And I think, Matt, you mentioned at the beginning of the show, from your State of the CIO survey, security was still the top concern. And so that's probably top of mind. So I'm just wondering where AI skills and fluency lands with most of the IT leaders that you talk about. Is it number one on their list now, or is it somewhere in the middle? And that's kind of our end of show vote here, by the way. Like, is AI at the top, or is it somewhere in the middle?
It depends how you pass it out, right? I think what's really interesting about that list is how many human skills are on there, like how many human leadership skills rather than technical IT skills. And I think, like Carl's covered this throughout the show, I've tried to sort of mention it as well. Like what you hear all the time is that the problem to be solved now is it's a problem in a world of uncertainty. It's about getting motivated, skilled people to follow a strategy and figure stuff out. Like that's increasingly like a thing that's required of leaders. What I will say is, as it relates to specifically technical things, like I know myriad IT leaders who have time set aside for them and their reports, like every week, maybe even every day, just to read up and gen themselves up on the latest thing. And it's AI. That's where that thinking is, right? The rest of the business can probably run itself, but I need to know more than the other people. But Carl, I mean, you speak to these people all the time. Like, what are you seeing?
No 2 days are the same, really. And I can talk to one IT leader about one thing, and then I can talk to another one, and it'll be vastly different or a totally different approach. But the commonality is that it's here, and it's going to affect how the enterprise is structured, and there is a wait and see element to it, but we're definitely seeing benefits. Some of the warts and all are being exposed in a lot of ways, just like Keith, what you said about having an avatar doing your first round of interviews. I mean, I can hardly see that being something that's going to catch on, especially when you speak to this generation who want a little more human contact, more empathy, more direct human interaction. That's kind of flies in the face of that mindset. So it's an incredibly exciting period right now, and it's great to speak with people and hear how things are developing and evolving.
All right. So would you say that AI and digital fluency is at the top of the list, or is it still security and some of the other skills? Is what skills they need to have?
Well, it's hard to really separate the two entirely. Like security, I mean, being part of being digitally fluid is understanding security and understanding who within your team, might be more, acutely attuned to that aspect of it, but having a network established to know who to speak to and who the expert is going to be. So that IT leader, the onus is on him or her to really see how all those integrate together.
Right. And one could argue that all of these skills that we're talking about, all of these different technical areas, plus all of the human areas of leadership and management, those will be affected by AI technologies. I think you'll see tools across all of those different brands. So again, not knowing about what tools you can use and how it could benefit the company would probably be the best way to go, right?
Yeah,
definitely. And it's like that question of like, what do we have to worry about today? Like, from an operational perspective, that is definitely like security and it's infrastructure, but it's like, how are we going to still be relevant tomorrow? And like the solution, Carl said it, right? Security and AI are not separate things, right? Like the solution will definitely involve some level of AI. So to your point, Keith, like if I'm an IT leader, I need to be if I'm not the most smart person around this technology, I need to be very close to that person.
There you go. All right, Matt and Carl, again, thanks again for joining us this month on the show. Some great stuff. And again, keep talking to those CIOs and get more stories for the next time we'll have you on the show.
All right. Thanks a lot, Keith.
Thanks, everybody, for participating. We're going to be back next month with more global editors to talk about the latest challenges in cloud computing. That's all the time we have on the show today. Feel free to add any comments you have below. And be sure to check out our other Tech Talk shows. We have a lot of great shows called Today in Tech, CIO Leadership Live, and Demo if you're interested in seeing the latest B2B product demonstrations. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.